Jean-Paul Sartre was a French philosopher, novelist, playwright, and political activist who became one of the most prominent figures in existentialism and a defining intellectual of the 20th century. Born in Paris on the 21st of June 1905, Sartre was raised in an intellectually vibrant household. His father, Jean-Baptiste Sartre, a French naval officer, died rather sadly when Sartre was very young, leaving his mother, Anne-Marie Schweitzer, to raise him with the help of her family, including Sartre's grandfather, Charles Schweitzer, a respected educator who encouraged his grandson's love for literature and philosophy. And this early exposure to books and complex ideas set the foundation for a lifetime of intellectual curiosity and ideas that have and indeed continue to change the way that we think of ourselves in the world. Sartre attended the world-famous and prestigious École Normale Supérieure, ENS, in Paris, which is where he studied philosophy and developed a reputation for both brilliance and irreverence. At ENS, he formed close friendships with contemporaries like Raymond Aron and Maurice Merleau-Ponty, who shared his intellectual drive and passion for philosophy. But most notably, in his time at ENS, Sartre met a woman who had a profound influence on his thought, his philosophy, and how he lived his life. The incredible mind with whom Sartre felt so strongly connected was Simone de Beauvoir. Simone was a fellow student and philosopher, and together they became entwined on a level that transcended mere love and attraction. Their relationship quickly developed into a deep, lifelong relationship. Their connection was more than just romantic. It was an intellectual partnership characterized by mutual respect and a shared commitment to freedom and individualism. Sartre and de Beauvoir famously chose a non-monogamous, open relationship in which they viewed each other as necessary loves, while allowing for contingent relationships with others. This unconventional arrangement became testament to their shared commitment to autonomy and free expression, reflecting the themes that would later underpin both their works. After completing his education, Sartre taught philosophy at various different institutions, but his philosophical direction shifted dramatically, as all things did at that time, with the outbreak of World War II. Drafted into the French military, he was captured by German forces in 1940, and he spent 9 months as a prisoner of war. During his captivity, Sartre encountered philosophical ideas that would deepen his existential convictions, including readings on phenomenology, particularly the works of Edmund Husserl. I've probably mispronounced that horribly, so I apologise, and Martin Heidegger. After his release in 1941, Sartre returned to Paris, where he joined the French resistance, reflecting his growing commitment to addressing human freedoms and oppression through ideas and action. The experiences of war and occupation fueled Sartre's existentialism, a philosophy that he articulated in his major philosophical work, Being and Nothingness, which was released in 1943. At the heart of Sartre's existentialism is the idea that existence precedes essence. This concept posits that humans are born without any sort of predetermined purpose, identity, or essence. And it's only through living and making choices that individuals create their own essence. Sartre's existentialism contrasts sharply with the traditional views that hold that people are born with some sort of specific or intrinsic nature or purpose. In Sartre's view, there is no divine or universal essence that determines what it means to be human. Instead, each individual must define themselves through their actions and their choices. A central theme in Sartre's philosophy it is bad faith. And it might be one of the sort of more important aspects of Sartre's philosophy. That's not to say that there are aspects of it that aren't important or anything like that. It's just that I personally view this as one of the more interesting aspects of Sartre's particular flavour of existentialism. Essentially, bad faith is a form of like self-deception where an individual denies their freedom by adopting false identities or adhering to like societal roles that essentially absolve them of responsibility. That's kind of the purpose of them. And Sartre uses the example of a waiter, a cafe waiter, who performs his duties with exaggerated gestures and servile enthusiasm, almost as if he is acting the role of a waiter rather than simply being himself. The waiter is in bad faith because he is pretending to that his role as a waiter defines his entire existence, ignoring that he has the freedom to be more than just a function of his job. Sartre argues that people fall into bad faith when they convince themselves that they are defined by external factors, whether it's their job, social expectations, or even like personal circumstances, rather than embracing the unsettling freedom to define themselves. So bad faith, Sartre believed, is a common response to the existential anxiety. It's a bit of a mouthful. The existential anxiety that comes with radical freedom. To live authentically, he argued, requires acknowledging and confronting this freedom, even though it means accepting complete responsibility for your own choices. Sartre emphasised that there are no excuses for who we become or our actions. Everyone must own their decisions, recognising that they are entirely responsible for their own lives. This existential responsibility is daunting as it implies that we are the authors of our lives and, by extension, of the values and meaning that we create. Sartre's philosophical ideas permeated his literary work, including the wonderful novel Nausea, which was released in let me check my notes. 1938. So, Nausea follows a man who experiences a sense of like alienation and discomfort as he realizes the contingency and lack of inherent purpose in existence. In his play No Exit, which was 1944, Sartre dramatizes the conflicts of interpersonal relationships with the famous line, "Hell is other people." I love that line. But yeah, it's a very famous line, and it's probably my favourite from all of Sartre's work. Hell is other people. There's definitely something to that, right? And this line captures his view that human relationships often trap individuals in roles and expectations, creating a kind of existential hell where people are confined by the perceptions and judgments of others. Sartre was interested in the dynamics of selfhood and relationships, exploring how individuals struggle to maintain their own freedom and authenticity in a world where they are constantly seen and judged by others. Throughout the 50s and the 60s, Sartre's existentialism grew to encompass social and political themes. Sartre was initially really quite suspicious of Marxism, but he did become increasingly sympathetic to it and ended up developing what he called existential Marxism, which is a form that combined existentialist ideas of freedom and individual responsibility with an understanding of the material conditions that shape people's lives. He argued that true freedom requires not only personal responsibility, but liberation from oppressive systems such as colonialism, capitalism, and imperialism, which limit the freedom of marginalised people. Sartre supported anti-colonial movements, most notably in Algeria, where he opposed the French colonial rule, and he denounced the Vietnam War, standing firmly against United States imperialism. Sartre's political activism was central to his identity as a public intellectual. In his later years, he continued to write and speak out on social and political issues, even as his health began to deteriorate. In and this might be my favourite little story about Sartre. In 1964, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, which is, if you don't know, a prize that is coveted by many as the absolute pinnacle of achievement. But not being one to fall in line with what everybody else wants and does, Sartre famously and shockingly declined the award. So he explained that he didn't want to be what he deemed as institutionalized or like constrained by any particular sort of formal honors. And he held this position because he felt that institutionalization might compromise his independence and ability to critique society. He believed in maintaining an outsider's perspective, free from the sort of affiliations that might shape or dilute his principles. Now, this little story about Sartre and the Nobel Prize is one that I absolutely love because it's so... If there is a moment in time that perfectly encompasses who this man was, it's that. He was awarded the very thing that people spend their entire lives trying to work towards. And he dismissed it and said that it would actually be a hindrance to him. So it really was quite an incredible man. But yeah, so despite his declining health and fading eyesight as he got older, Sartre remained dedicated to his philosophical and political commitments. He continued to write, mentor young philosophers, and collaborate with de Beauvoir, his philosophical and life partner, right up until the end. He passed away on April 15th, 1980, in Paris. His death marked the end of an era, but his funeral, which was attended by thousands, was a testament to the profound influence he had on contemporary thought. Jean-Paul Sartre's legacy endures in the philosophical exploration of freedom, responsibility, and the human condition. His existentialism challenges individuals to confront the anxiety of a world without inherent meaning, and to reject bad faith in favour of authenticity. By encouraging people to embrace their freedom and take responsibility for their choices, Sartre's philosophy continues to inspire and challenge individuals to live with purpose, even in the face of existential uncertainty. His work remains influential across philosophy, literature, and politics as each generation revisits his ideas to grapple with questions of meaning, morality, and the role of the individual in shaping the world. So that is a really quick look at Jean-Paul Sartre and his life and his contributions to society and the the impact that he's had also. Now, Jean-Paul Sartre is somebody that I personally consider to be one of the greatest writers and philosophers of all time. And the contributions that he's made to philosophy are immense, to say the least. But they are also things that are, at least seem to me to be, how do I put this? So a lot of philosophy is quite aspirational. It's how should we live, rather than descriptive, how do we live? And Sartre's existentialism seems to me to be descriptive. This is the world. This is the individual, and so on. So I find it to be the most... I find it to be the flavour, shall we say, of philosophy that makes the most sense and is the most reflective of the world we live in, rather than, as I said, the sort of more aspirational philosophies that exist, which are, descriptions of how you'd like to live and how you'd like the world to be. So Sartre's existentialism is very much a real world look at life, and it's truly incredible. So if you have the opportunity, I heartily recommend that you read Being and Nothingness. It is a book that I reread on a regular occasion, and I get something new from it each time. It facilitates deep thinking. It exposes... in some way exposes yourself to yourself. I know that sounds like a silly thing to say, but it gives you the means by which you can view yourself with some measure of objectivity, in the sense of viewing yourself from like outside yourself. So it is incredible, and on top of being, one of the greatest philosophers of all time, he's an incredible writer too. So the way that he puts things, the language he uses, everything, it's just beautiful. So if you have the opportunity, go and read Being and Nothingness. But yeah, so that's a really quick sort of look at the life, philosophy and the influence of Jean-Paul Sartre. I touched mostly on the concept of bad faith, the idea that we are sort of living roles rather than living as ourselves. But there is a whole lot more to Sartre's philosophy, to his existentialism, than what I've covered. I couldn't actually cover it all in one video. We'd be here for days on end. So this is just the beginning of your journey. Go and read Being and Nothingness, rather. And I promise you, it will change your world, or at least your perception of it. So if you found this video interesting or informative, maybe you've learned something you didn't know before, whatever it may be, do me an enormous favour and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and all of those things that YouTubers ask you to do. That would be wonderfully helpful to me, but it also means that YouTube is going to show you more, not just of my content, but of other people's content, people that are talking about similar things, so you get a much wider perspective. So yeah, there's some positives to the YouTube algorithm, that's for sure. So, but yeah, if you have enjoyed it, hit that like and subscribe. But thank you very much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.